everybody, here we are today doing our CFL recaps, and I'm actually definitely getting them done this week as I have all the notes done. And we're talking about the Ottawa Redblacks today, so before we start with them, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or the CFL, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's jump on into it. So 2022 saw the Ottawa Redblacks go 4-14 and again miss the playoffs, but I think 2023 saw a lot of reasons for optimism, kind of similar to 2022. So Bob Dice, of course, comes back as the head coach. He was the interim coach in 2022, went 1-3. And then you have to talk about Jeremiah Masoli actually being able to play and stay healthy. Of course, the 2022 injury was not his fault. So optimism was, of course, the thing with this team in the nation's capital. Things get off to kind of a problematic start as Masoli is set to miss time again with an injury. So they bring out Nick Arbuckle. Arbuckle is going to go out there and go 0-2 as a starter. Not a great stretch for him, and I do think, unfortunately, this season probably sealed the deal as to him probably being a backup in the CFL for his future. You know, a few years ago, maybe he could have been a starter. This season, especially on this Ottawa side, it looks like he would really need to be on a contending team to look good. Either way, the Redblacks get off to a slow start, and they are now looking to pick up their first win. So then, of course, that's exactly what they do with Tyree Adams as the quarterback. They win 26-7 against the Edmonton Elks. Got to be feeling relatively good here. A nice win, be able to win at home too, I think, which was nice in front of the home crowd after these past few years just have not been great for the team. Fast forward to week 7. This team is 3-3 after their first 6 games. Thanks to a guy named Dustin Crum. He helped a little bit. They had a win over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers where they were able to rally back in overtime. And then they had another win over the Calgary Stampeders, a really fun game too. I remember that one. That was fun. The Winnipeg game was just a little bit more of a late surge. Either way, 2 back-to-back OT wins as they are looking like with Crum over 500 yards passing, 160 plus yards rushing, multiple touchdowns. Maybe they can go out there and get a playoff push going, and they're very exciting. The only problem is they would go on to lose 7 in a row as you would see their playoff hopes really just fall apart as they just struggled. They were a team that were in these games. In fact, they only had 2 losses by 10 plus points. One of those, though, was an especially painful game against the Edmonton Elks as they were 1-9 entering that game. They ended up losing that game to Edmonton. That was not a fun loss. Now, the other losses were all very, very close. And what do I mean by close? I mean that 5 of these games, or the remaining 5 games, were by 4 points or less. One of those games in particular, I remember being very painful for our nation, and that was a game against the BC Lions. It looked like a very big upset win. It was over at BC Place, and I was watching that game just thinking, we are getting pumped by the Redblacks at home. That was not something I was super thrilled about. I will root for anybody. You know, I'm a CFL fan at heart, but of course the Lions are my team. And they were down like 37-18 in the fourth quarter. When you know it, they rallied back. One of those was a return, big return for a touchdown by Scary Terry Williams. I was really happy about that because that sparked the fear in Ottawa fans and kind of sparked a little bit of hope in me saying, we're actually probably going to win this. They go on to win that one as you see that win slip away, and there were some other ones where they were just very, very close. Thinking about those games and saying maybe if we just flipped 2 of those, we would have been well and truly in a playoff spot. They're hoping maybe with the final 5 games of the year, they could get back into playoff positioning, but they go 1-4 to finish out their final 5 games and finish out the season 4-14, again failing to qualify for the playoffs. So despite being able to keep the score close in some of these games and being able to say maybe we could have been in a playoff spot if things had went differently, there still were some things that went wrong this year. Looking at the club, they had the 2nd worst yards per attempt in passes, and Dustin Crum was part of this too, I think, especially looking at sack yards. They had 500 sack yards lost, or they had yards lost off the sacks, and this was like 130 more than 2nd place Montreal. So part of that, I gotta imagine, is Crum especially trying to make plays happen out of nothing. Not saying it was all directly related to him. There were some games where this offensive line probably ended up having a bad game, but there was also some moments where these quarterbacks couldn't make a lot happen. Maybe there wasn't enough separation, but still not a great year as they finish with 11 passing touchdowns in 18 games. That's kind of going to be a problem, whereas you have a team like Winnipeg that threw over 40. And defensively, they did give up the most yards through the air, and looking at them, they were able to get a lot of interceptions this season, so that was kind of nice. But I do believe they also had a lot of issues offensively, fumbling the ball. All in all, though, looking at a guy like Lorenzo Malden, he had a bit of a drop-off. Bryce Carter, though, he had a good year. And with Malden, it's tough to say because we are looking at just like sacks and things like that in the CFL. We don't have some of those fancy things you get with some other leagues that are a little bit bigger, and I think we'll get that in the future. So maybe there's more to it than that. There were some injuries, too, especially looking at some guys on the defensive side. Offense, of course, dealing with some things, too. But you see a team that, while they didn't have the best year, I can only remember one game, and I looked through their game log too. I remember them getting beat relatively badly, and that was the 29-3 loss to the Montreal Alouettes. And I don't know how you judge a season if you're a fan of the team with close wins and seeing some positives and seeing all the things that went against you, especially at the start of the year with Mazzoli again and having to rumble through a bunch of different quarterbacks. I could say that this year was relatively successful because you could say if we are healthy this year and we had all these close games from last year, maybe we could go out there and be like a 9-9 team, something like that. I don't really know how you view it because still 4-14 is a long way from making the playoffs because you would still have needed 4 more wins to even be there with Hamilton, who was 8-10. There's a lot to talk about with the 2024 season previews, but with the 2023 season recap with Ottawa, there were some ups, there were some downs, but I think with a team that goes 4-14, you expect there to be a lot of blowouts, something that there really wasn't. So anyway, what are your thoughts on Ottawa's season? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe and have a great night.